Good morning. Thanks for being here. Happy Labor Day. I'm Stephen Romo in for Joe and Savannah today. And we do begin in Israel, which is in the midst of a nationwide strike this morning. Workers in many industries now trying to pressure the Israeli government into securing a ceasefire and hostage return deal in Gaza. That's after the bodies of 6 captives were killed after almost 11 months in captivity, and their bodies recovered over the weekend. Their deaths sparking anger and outrage in Israel. Hundreds of thousands of anti-government protesters are taking to the streets, blaming Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for failing to reach that ceasefire deal that would have seen those hostages released. The Israeli military says it found the bodies in a tunnel in Rafah and says they were killed by Hamas. Among the dead is Israeli-American citizen Hirsch Goldberg-Polin, and all of this comes as hopes of getting a deal to return the remaining hostages remains elusive. Officials say at least 11 Palestinians were killed yesterday in an Israeli strike on a school-turned-shelter in Gaza City. But this morning, the UN is continuing its massive campaign to administer the polio vaccine to 640,000 Palestinian children now in Gaza after it started that program Sunday. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now from Tel Aviv. So, Matt, what's the latest on those just massive protests in Israel, probably the biggest we've seen since October? And what's the reaction from the hostage families over that terrible news over the weekend?
Yeah, this was a huge protest. We were out there for several hours last night, and it really snarled up traffic in major cities, including here in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and Haifa in the north. This was something that was supposed to spill over in today. As you mentioned, this nationwide strike. It was involving the biggest labor union in the country had agreed to this strike, major municipalities throughout the country. In the end, it was mostly symbolic. I don't know if you can hear. There's still work going on at this construction site. Traffic is circulating as normal. Things are really proceeding. And in fact, one of the courts actually ordered that the strike needs to end really in a couple minutes from now at 2:30 p.m. local time. So this was mostly symbolic. Even the airport, Ben Gurion, which was supposed to kind of shut down, was mostly proceeding as normal with a couple of snags this morning. But this is still something that is going to be putting the government on notice in a way that it might not have had done before, even though we've seen these protests rolling every week and really throughout the weeks ever since October 7th, demanding that the government do everything it can for some kind of deal. I spoke with the daughter of a man who is still being held in the Gaza Strip, and this was a conversation we had during the full froth of these protests last night. Here's what she said.
I want to ask the Biden administration to see that Netanyahu is not doing his job. Netanyahu is killing my dad. Netanyahu is killing the hostages. He's murdering them. And I'm asking Biden to use his good power and to be a leader, because Netanyahu is not a leader. He's just a politician, as we can see.
So as you can hear, a lot of the anger was really directed at Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister. Of course, most of the rage directed at Hamas. But it was really Benjamin Netanyahu who time after time in these protests here in Israel has been getting the brunt, the forceful, harsh end of these protesters' rage. Stephen?
So, Matt, has Netanyahu responded to all this? Is there any indication that this huge protest could actually help their cause?
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing Haaretz newspaper reported last night that Benjamin Netanyahu is not going to be yielding on his position that has been really what a lot of people have said is snarling the process to come to some sort of agreement. That is the decision that he made in really just the past couple of weeks to include a stipulation that Israeli troops have to stay on the Philadelphia corridor. This is essentially another name for the band of land, the border area between the southern Gaza Strip and Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. It's just the border zone. And this was a demand that he has made because he says he's trying to prevent more tunnels being dug between Egypt and the Gaza Strip that in the past they've accused of allowing Hamas to bring weapons into the Gaza Strip. This was a stipulation that they have added quite recently, the Israelis, and Hamas and others have said this is what is holding up the deal. And a lot of these protesters last night said that these sorts of additions are what are actually killing the hostages. Stephen?
And Matt, your interview there, they were talking about the Biden administration. Real quick here, do we have any indication of what the Biden administration thinks and is saying about all this?
hard to know because we have heard from the Biden administration a forceful denunciation of Hamas's murder of these 6 young people in the Gaza Strip. But what we haven't heard is an echoing from the Biden administration or from Kamala Harris about the opinions that we heard on the ground last night and that we've been hearing from a lot of Israelis, which is, like I said, not necessarily just blaming Hamas, but also blaming Benjamin Netanyahu. We have not yet seen a forceful denunciation of Benjamin Netanyahu's position on these negotiations yet from the White House. Stephen.
All right, Matt Bradley there with the latest. Matt, thank you. And turning now to the race for the White House, and for the first time, we're hearing from Vice President Harris about former President Trump's controversial visit to Arlington National Cemetery. This comes as a White House official and Harris aide tell NBC News that Gold Star families did not invite President Biden or Vice President Harris to commemorate the 3rd anniversary of the attack at Abbey Gate in Afghanistan. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez now with the latest.
The controversy over former President Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery has reignited. Vice President Harris slamming him for disrespecting sacred ground, all for the sake of a political stunt. She's calling the cemetery a solemn place and not a place for politics.
We lost 13 great people.
It's her first time weighing in after the Trump campaign posted this highlight video on TikTok showing the former president laying a wreath in honor of the service members killed during the chaotic military withdrawal from Afghanistan. A cemetery spokesperson said federal law prohibits campaign-related activities there.
Mr. President, what do you think of President Trump's behavior at Arlington Cemetery with the visit to the fallen soldiers?
I don't want to answer things. I may tell you what I think.
On social media, former President Trump posted a series of videos from Gold Star families criticizing the Biden administration.
You have been nothing but disrespectful to me and the families of the 13.
We invited President Trump. We are the ones that asked for the video and the pictures to be taken.
Even though the U.S. troop withdrawal from Afghanistan was negotiated with the Taliban during the Trump administration, the former president blames the Biden White House for its poor execution.
Joe Biden killed those young people because he was incompetent. And then they tell me that I used their graves for public relations services, and I didn't.
In an interview with NBC News last week, Trump insisted he knew nothing about the video that was shared on TikTok and said the Gold Star families had invited him.
You know who the families also invited? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Where were they? Joe Biden was sitting at a beach. Kamala Harris was sitting at her mansion in Washington, D.C.
A White House official and the Harris aide deny the president or vice president were ever invited. The Harris Walls campaign is planning a battleground blitz on Labor Day with stops in Michigan, Wisconsin, and a rare joint event with President Biden in Pennsylvania. Former President Trump is also expected to hold a town hall in that state on Wednesday. Back to you.
All right, Gabe, thanks so much. And for more on the state of the race, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard, who's covering the Trump campaign. We're also joined by NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett from Detroit, who's traveling with the vice president on this Labor Day. Good morning to you both. Thanks for being here. So, Vaughn, let's start with you. This back and forth about Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery, it's been pretty much brewing since it happened. And we heard there in Gabe's piece some of the video posted on X over the weekend with those Gold Star families defending the former president and criticizing the Biden administration. That really feels like the Trump campaign helped keep this story front and center even longer. What's the strategy there?
Right. And I was at an event with the former president on Friday night where he was the one who directly brought it up among the crowd there. And in large part, it's because of the 13 service personnel who lost their lives 3 years ago in Afghanistan during that withdrawal. And for Donald Trump and the campaign, politically, it has allowed them to continue to focus for the public at large on the passing of those 13 individuals and place the blame on the Biden-Harris administration for the quick withdrawal there that led to the killings of these 13 Americans. And as Gabe mentioned here, there's a lot of nuance as part of the Afghanistan withdrawal with, of course, there was the Doha Agreement signed in February of 2020 by the Trump administration that led to more than 5,000 Taliban prisoners being released by the Afghan government. But a lot of that nuance has been lost, and ultimately it was under the watch of the Biden-Harris administration that these 13 individuals lost their lives. And so for Donald Trump here, at a moment in time in which he is trying to contend to the electorate that there was a peaceful state of affairs between the U.S. in terms of its military obligations during the time that he was in the White House, this is one of those moments where the Harris campaign is using the Arlington Cemetery moment there, in the fact that his campaign filmed and then promoted the event to suggest that Donald Trump was disrespected the sacred ground. And so now you see the Trump campaign trying to turn it on its head and continue to focus on the fact that those 13 individuals were killed and their families are left without their loved ones.
And also possibly some cleanup for the previous statements the president has made that have seemed to criticize military members and their families. Maura, let's turn to you and the Harris campaign here on the road this Labor Day. The vice president has a busy day ahead of the visits to key battleground states. What can we expect?
Yeah, this is all part of a Labor Day blitz that Vice President Harris, President Biden, and Governor Tim Walz are all a part of. We're here in Detroit ahead of Vice President Harris's first stop. She'll later head to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to meet President Biden there. Governor Walz is in Wisconsin today as well. And this is as the White House is really looking to highlight what they call the most pro-worker, pro-union White House in history. They're highlighting, specifically a White House official highlighting Harris's working to organize and help advocate for collective bargaining for federal workers, and union voters are going to be key in these battleground states. And so that's what they're really looking to harness on. And if you look at the fact that President Biden is coming straight back from vacation today to join Vice President Harris in the key battleground of Pennsylvania, a place where he's celebrated Labor Day many times before, it really kind of gives some foreshadowing in the role that he's going to be playing in the Democratic campaign going forward.
And Maura, it's generally after Labor Day when most people really sort of start paying attention to presidential politics. You're in Michigan. Of course, both candidates really want to claim that on Election Day. What are the polls telling us now about the state of the race?
Yeah, a key battleground, just 63 days until the election. Here in Michigan, specifically, new polling shows a tighter gap between former President Trump and Vice President Harris, just 3 to 4%, depending on which poll you're looking at, that Harris is leading by. But then, given that there is such a high share of union voters or voters in union households here in Michigan and several other battleground states, when you look at union voters specifically across the country, she has a higher or a larger lead, about 10%, give or take. And that was a poll from earlier in August. And so we're really going to be looking at those important votes coming up with this election, because between the battleground state and the union voter and the workers' rights that people are really looking to harness on, that's the focus we're going to see. We're also learning on Harris's part here in Detroit today, the nearly 2 million member American Federation of Teachers Union is going to be launching a massive bus tour to advocate for Harris throughout the battleground states. We're expecting to see that launch here in Detroit today. But then on the flip side, J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate for Trump, was at the Firefighters Union in Boston last week, also advocating, saying that the Trump campaign has been the most pro-worker, or the best worker situation for American unions as well. And so this is something we're really going to see both campaigns focusing on, given that essential vote, Stephen.
Both sides wanting to claim that title. Vaughn, before we let you go, while we have you here, I rely on your updates on former President Trump's legal challenges. His legal team last Friday suggested a court schedule in the federal election interference case that would delay everything till after the election. What more can you tell us about that?
Right. His legal team has effectively staved off a lot of his legal trials here at this point. Of course, after the New York hush money payment trial, we are still waiting to see whether that sentencing happens on September 18th or not. But specifically on the federal election interference case, there were filings from both sides as to what the timeline for that trial should look like. Because of the Supreme Court's immunity decision, the court is going to go and ultimately determine whether some of the charges or whether whether some of the evidence should be taken out of the original indictment and whether the prosecution can bring forward some particular evidence or not. And the two sides provided two very different timelines. Of course, the Department of Justice, the special counsel, suggested that they were ready to immediately move forward with these hearings. And if Judge Chutkan, who is going to be holding a hearing this Thursday to evaluate this calendar and this timeline, if she were to rule in favor of the special counsel's timeline, that could even lead to an evidentiary hearing with potential witnesses even testifying as part of the decision on some of those immunity motions. But if Donald Trump's lawyers get their way, their timeline would push the hearing of the motions and these two sides coming together for a formal hearing all the way until January 27th, which of course would be 1 week after Inauguration Day. And in the scenario that Donald Trump were to win the presidency, there is the potential that he could order his Department of Justice to toss the indictment against him and effectively end this indictment and end the fact that there would ever be a trial regarding the 2020 alleged federal election interference from ever taking place.
Fascinating possibilities as this continues to play out. Vaughn and Maura, thank you both so much. Well, nothing says that the end of summer is here quite like Labor Day, and with it, the millions of people hitting the roads and the airports for one last chance of fun in the sun. So far, this year's holiday weekend has been one for the record books. The TSA was preparing for a staggering 17 million Americans to pass through airport screening over the long weekend. Travel expert at Going.com, Katie Nastro, joins me now with everything we need to know before we head out. Katie, good morning to you. Great to see you. So first thing, what tips do you have for anyone who's going to head to the airport today on a holiday?
Yeah, look, with 17 million people expected by the TSA, it is likely going to be busy as people look to now head home and restart their week and the school term. So, a couple things that you can do. You can check out the My TSA app, download that, and it will actually give you some historical numbers based on what to expect in terms of how long those security lines will be. So it can give you an estimation of how early you should get to the airport. If you're traveling by car, same thing. You want to avoid sort of getting on the road after 10 a.m. today. And if you're leaving tomorrow, you want to look to travel out after 1 p.m., so about midday onwards. And if you can, going back to the air travel, if you can, try to avoid checking a bag. This is another long line that you're going to have to stand in. You might have done some shopping on your travels. I know I usually do. And it can actually be cheaper to look to mail those extra items home versus looking to check that bag and get hit with that extra bag fee as well.
Ooh, good tip there. Just go ahead and mail it. Well, we'll have more on weather in just a moment, but of course that could affect people's travel plans. If someone's flight does end up getting canceled, what should they do first?
Yeah, look, when your flight is disrupted by weather or something else with just beyond your control, the really main thing to understand is time is of the essence. There are not an unlimited supply of extra seats to get rebooked on, so you want to take every measure possible. That means getting on the airline's app, seeing if you can self-serve and rebook yourself without having to get on the phone or get in that line. But if you are in the airport, it definitely means getting on that customer service line, as well as don't just give the domestic line a call, always give an international line a call if your airline does have one. Those agents can help you just the same, get you rebooked. And oftentimes that wait or that hold is going to be far less than the domestic line that everybody's looking to get on. So those are some things that you can do, as well as just understand under federal regulation that you can opt to get a refund and not get rebooked on a new flight. Say you don't want to travel that day, you can just get that refund. And disruptions now under federal regulation are 3 hours or more for domestic trips and 6 hours or more for international trips. So another thing to keep in mind if you see that delay getting a little bit lengthier and lengthier.
All right, let's talk some weather and how that's shaping up for this Labor Day. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us now. Hey, Michelle.
Good morning, Stephen. Great to see you. And it's all about location today. Some spots feeling like fall from the Great Lakes to New England. The west is heating up, especially the Intermountain West. We're looking at temperatures well above normal. And it's the south where we're looking at that washout. A lot of cookouts not happening there because we're looking at that ongoing rain. We have two parts to this. We have a front that's kind of parked in place and then an area of low pressure. So these are working working together to bring a lot of rain in a short amount of time in some spots, mainly in Texas into Louisiana. But this rain stretches all the way from Texas to the Carolinas, including the southeast. We could see that flash flood threat continuing due to training rain. We could see rainfall rates of 2, even 3 inches per hour. So we're going to be watching that once again today. That could cause some problems in the air. Likely delays in Houston, also in Tampa. Could see some possible delays from Charlotte to Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, also New Orleans because of this rainfall. And it could cause some low ceilings as well. Minor issues in the Carolinas, but still could cause some slowdowns. If you're traveling on the roadways, certainly could see some delays along I-20 through Texas, also I-10 along the Gulf Coast states, and then I-95 from Florida into the Carolinas. We're going to see some rain falling in spots that could create some slippery conditions. Otherwise, look at this forecast. Most of the country doing okay in terms of the weather. Comfortable throughout the upper Great Lakes, upper Midwest into the Great Lakes, into the Northeast, the New England, Mid-Atlantic looking really good. We're looking at some showers in parts of the Rockies. Otherwise, it's hot and dry in the South. We're going to start to see Southwest. We're going to start to see those temperatures really soar over the next several days. And the Intermountain West is warm today as well. That flood risk, that's a big story, though, along the Gulf Coast states. As we go throughout Wednesday or the rest of the week, by Friday, we're looking at eastern showers along the Gulf Coast states. So that rain does continue. Seasonal temperatures throughout the south central states. Lots of sunshine in the northern plains, the central plains. Fire concerns continue throughout portions of the West, especially the Intermountain West into the Rockies, and looking good in parts of New England. So, Stephen, we do have flood alerts today. That's a big weather story on this day. We're going to see some slowdowns big time, and also some really flooding concerns throughout the Gulf Coast states today.
All right. Michelle Grossman with that Labor Day update. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.